It is the Fantasy Pros Best Ball Show with myself, Tom Strachen, and your favorite Fred Master, Andrew Erickson, who is on the clock. We are not messing around tonight. We will talk more about what contest we're in just a second. But Andrew, this is Best Ball. This is FFPC, Superflex Tight End Premium, and you just selected Jayden Daniels with the 103 pick. We are not drafting together tonight. We are going head to head, myself versus you, to see which the viewers think is the better team overall when this is over. So, how much conviction have you got in Jayden Daniels at the 103?
Well, when I found out that I was picking third overall in this draft, when we figured out our draft slots, I think it was like an hour, 30 minutes before, I was pumped because I knew going in, all right, sick, I'm going to get Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, or Jayden Daniels in the Superflex format. So I think that when you have a top 3 pick or even top 4 pick, I think that it's pretty simple to go with one of these elite quarterbacks in the Superflex format. Obviously, we're seeing some of these quarterbacks already fly off the board here. So that's how I started, and your pick is coming up. So I will throw it back to you as you make your pick at the 109 slot. Love your team name, by the way. Erickson sucks. Great name, Tom.
Hey, look, we're not on the same team today. We've got to get it going. And as Axel says in the chat, scared money don't make money. Good luck, boys. So, yes, I'm on the clock. This format, it is tight end premium as well as Superflex, which definitely makes it more possible to build in a variety of fashions. And the clocks for this draft are 60 seconds. Unlike those underdog drafts, which are 20 seconds, it gives us a little bit more time to just talk about it. So, the QBs have been obliterated by the time it gets to me. It's Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, CD Lamb, Christian McCaffrey, and then Patrick Mahomes with an ADP of 15.2 is the first one. So I will not be taking a quarterback. And this really just comes down to Bijan, Saquon, Justin Jefferson, or CD Lamb. I'm going to go with Bijan Robinson. He is my RB1 overall. I don't think the difference is as much as it's kind of being made out to be in some places, but look, everything about Bijan I love. And let's just circle back whilst the draft plays out for a few more picks and talk about this contest because we did come in thick and fast to this one. The FFPC, this is a $35 contest with 16,000 teams all together in it. Max of 150 entries. If you want to max enter this, it is going to cost you over $5,000. Now, there is $100,000 up top. 10K to second place. So really, we want to finish first. The drop-off is steep here. A couple of years ago, I finished 8th overall in this contest and walked away with, I think it was $2,500. Don't get me wrong, that's a nice payday, but we want to be finishing first. And I think that we've got to build teams with upside. Andrew, we've built some super flex teams this year. We built a Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson team on the Puppy Superflex, but really felt like it had upside. So, have you got any particular thoughts on how you're going to keep building upon Jayden Daniels to shoot for elite upside here?
Well, I'm going to try to catch some of this dipping talent at wide receiver, running back, and because this is the FFPC, we have the tight end premium kind of thrown into play. And oh man, I just have to announce Drake May off the board in round 2. Love to see it here from the guy picking at the 12, Hail Mary. That is a Hail Mary play. Love that with Drake May going
Get you guys
201.
season.
Absolutely love it. But back to my strategy again, locked and loaded with Jayden Daniels as my QB1. And now I can hopefully scoop up some value at running back receiver while others are looking at quarterbacks. And it's fun because of the tight end premium aspect of it. So we saw Brock Bowers go in the middle of the first round. We'll see where Trey McBride probably going to come up next and some of these other tight ends. So adjusting your strategy again, this is such a fun format because quarterback, the onesie positions are really boosted up. So it's not just debating running back and receivers in the middle rounds. It's all 4 positions kind of going head to head, just like us.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned it, Titan premium. So the Titans here get an extra point, half point per reception, which really does make a big difference in bringing them more level with the top end wide receivers and running backs. Now, obviously, it's still hard for them to compete with the true volume monsters. But guys like Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, who will see elite volume, they really can make a difference in this format. They can be a difference maker. And with the wide receivers being cleared out with CD Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Justin Jefferson going, I'm going to take Trey McBride. I love Trey McBride. I think that he was a great play last year. He was on my most successful teams last year, and I'm happy to roll that back. We're going to get to a few questions in the chat. We've got plenty of people here today, and we really do appreciate you hanging out with us over on Twitch. We are live each and every week on Twitch until the season starts. Mike asking, is Tom drafting at midnight his time? Yeah, look, Mike, you know me. I'm not sleeping at this time of year. There's too many drafts to do, too much fantasy football content to be done. Why would I sleep at this point? And Pancake saying, why is Jayden Daniels over Hurts in general? Big offensive talent differences, in my opinion. I think that's a fair question to ask. I just think it also comes out of the fact that Jalen Hurts wasn't particularly fantastic last year. The tush pushes really kind of kept him afloat a little bit. There's kind of that concern about AJ Brown, slightly bit of a regression season for him. But I think you can play it one of two ways. If you think that Jalen Hurts isn't very good, then you should be in on Saquon Barkley. If you think that Jalen Hurts is primed for a really fantasy relevant season, then it's going to come at the expense of Saquon Barkley. So, yeah, there's lots of different ways you can play that. Personally, I'm kind of fine scooping Jalen Hurts value. I don't aggressively feel the need to do it because quite often you can get both. You can get them at reasonable costs. Jayden Daniels, though, I mean, we saw this for CJ Stroud. Now, I'm not trying to downplay your pick there, Andrew, but last year, the rookie fever coming off the back of it, people do get excited for the shiny new product. Do you think Jayden Daniels can take the next step to another tier? And obviously, I'll let you make your pick whilst you're going.
Yeah, so I'm just going to make my pick right now. So I'm going to go with rookie running back Ashton Genty in the middle of end of the second round. But with Jayden Daniels, I think that is kind of the bet that you're looking to make, where you're hoping he can take a step in year two. We obviously know that the rushing upside is there with him. And I don't want to say that it's a giant ranking gap between Daniels and Hurts. I mean, I have them in that same tier, talked about at the top. I think that there's a clear top four quarterbacks, and Jalen Hurts with the rushing touchdown equity he has is really hard to match. But I mean, Daniels, the fact that they were able to do it last year with Terry McLaurin and then a bunch of guys that we weren't necessarily super excited about. Now he has Debo added to the fold. Now, I think that if this McLaurin thing continues to linger and he isn't there, I think that could probably hurt some of the bottom line with Jayden Daniels if the passing maybe takes a step back. But the rushing he has is just so high. He was just so good as a rookie in this Cliff Kingsbury offense. They've obviously upgraded things offensive line wise, bringing in Laramie Tunsil. So I think that there's still a lot of working in Jayden Daniels' favor. And I mean, he's still a young player that's on the ascend. So that's why for me, it's Daniels over Hurts. But I do think that it is close and definitely worth a discussion.
Yeah, I mean, you look at how many touchdowns Hurts scored over the last few years. I don't see any reason that's necessarily going to regress negatively to a point where it really damages his fantasy value. And if the defense regresses, and we know year to year that defense can regress and can be less predictable than certain things within the offense, then maybe we do see more pass attempts in the second halves of games, and that really helps. A few more questions in the chat. Alex Trem asking, is it Dynasty Superflex? No, this is just straight up best ball. No Dynasty for myself and Andrew. We'll leave that to the Dynasty gurus elsewhere on the channel. Axel asking, how do you all feel about Saquon Barkley? Seems like the industry is fading in, but at what point does it become a buy? I think that's a great question to ask, and I think that we're kind of starting to see him come back up in ADP and consensus values. Like, I write a series on Fantasy Pros about how to draft from each position, and a few weeks ago, it was getting to the point where you were seeing Saquon Barkley falling down consensus ADP to like the 6th, 7th spot. Now, as more people come into the draft rooms and change ADP, he is pushing further back up. And I think that's right. But Jahmyr Gibbs has flipped him. And I just can't make too many arguments about shooting for upside and ceiling on Saquon Barkley. And that's coming from somebody who got him quite wrong last year. Andrew, where are you at on Barkley at the minute?
Yeah, so I'm out on Barkley. I am one of the touch bros, I guess, in terms of fading Saquon Barkley. I just think that the evidence is pretty clear of guys coming off of workloads that are similar to what Barkley saw last year, and the results have been not great. For me, it's a process play, if anything, where, look, could this be the year that he breaks the trend, right? He's the one that overcomes it. He's on Madden, doesn't matter. He overcomes it. He's still really efficient. I think that's definitely possible. I mean, it's football. Anything can happen. It's a weird game with a weird shaped ball, but I trust the process. And more often than not, the guy with his profile at his age, with his injury history, is just not a good bet to make. And we were talking about this on an earlier show this week. about, or one that we recorded today, myself, Ryan Wormley, and Jake Seeley, where we talked about, with the running backs at the top of the board, you could poke some holes in some of these players, whether it's like Saquon coming off all of his, or the touch workload that he saw last year, Christian McCaffrey with all of his injuries. Ashton Genty's a rookie. Maybe people are a little gun shy on him just because he's never done it before. And I look at the receivers, and there are so many good wide receivers at the top of the board. Inside the top 10, top 11, top 12, however you want to rank them. And I feel like there's so much ceiling with some of these players that I'm almost more open to, okay, like I don't want to deal with the McCaffrey if he stays healthy or not. I don't want to deal with the Saquon Barkley and the touches. I'm just going to pound some of these wide receivers at the beginning. That's why I love picking at the end of round 1 and the beginning of round 2. And just in this draft, you're picking at the 303. I drafted one of my favorite wide receivers that you can get in round 2 in normal redraft formats in one quarterback leagues is Drake London. I absolutely love Drake London, his upside here. Now I'm pairing him as my wide receiver 1 with Genty. I feel good about 2 players that I think in one quarterback leagues could be drafted in round 1. I'm now pairing them with Daniels. I think I'm off to a good start when it comes to the superflex format.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm right there with you on Drake London. Very much been in on him. And if you've been watching us each and every week over here on Twitch, you'll know that me and Andrew definitely like a lot of the same players. So it's going to be interesting seeing who gets who tonight. Before the show, Andrew told me that I can have Rashad White at the minute, but we'll see. And honestly, we're going to keep rolling these until the NFL season starts. Myself, Andrew, just attacking different formats, different contests each and every single week. You learn about strategy, stacks, sleepers, and so much more. 4 p.m. Eastern over on Twitch, twitch.tv/fantasy pros. So over to myself now. Axel in the chat is saying that I've got to take Justin Fields if he's there. I don't know, man. Like the Justin Fields vibes have gotten a little bit worse over the last couple of weeks, and I'm going to lean instead towards Dak Prescott, who I think is still undervalued. I think that Dak Prescott is one of those players that really, we're not far away from him getting MVP votes a couple of years ago. Yes, he only got a few, and it wasn't, massively in his favor or anything, but I like Dak Prescott, and I think that the pass volume there is going to be really high because I don't believe in the ground game. Now, Justin Fields, obviously, much was made of him dislocating his toe the other day, Andrew, but then he goes out at the weekend and scores the rushing touchdown. But the passing stuff doesn't sound too good. Where are you at as a temperature check on Justin Fields?
I'm still very much into Fields. I think that the rushing upside is so evident with him. We saw it in the preseason game, rushing for a touchdown. The Jets want to run the ball. I think that the passing does come with major concerns because it's very fragile, right? Outside of Garrett Wilson, who are we really trusting in this passing game to really elevate Fields? And a lot of the training camp reports have been the passing game doesn't look that great. But when you take a step back and think, well, when Josh Reynolds is your number 2 guy, of course it's not going to look that great. So it's kind of to be expected that it's not this high flying off. I mean, that's the reason why they want to run the ball and use 3 different running backs is because they know that their strengths aren't in the passing game. So I think that the ceiling with him as a passer is going to be limited in some capacity. And maybe I like Fields a little bit more in the 1 quarterback formats where, okay, if the passing doesn't work out, I can move on to somebody else. Whereas in this one, you need the consistency every single week. If the rushing is there, then he should be able to deliver that. But there's been a lot of times where you've drafted a mobile quarterback hoping that you're going to get the rushing upside, and you do. But if the passing just isn't there, you run into an Anthony Richardson situation from last year. And I'm not trying to compare the two because I think Fields is still clearly ahead of where Richardson is as a passer in the NFL. But there are going to be situations in games where if Fields doesn't have that rushing touchdown, he's going to probably leave you a little disappointed. So I think that in the best ball format, I think he's also a better play because you don't have to second guess yourself if he comes off a bad game. Who do I start this guy? That was a constant problem with Richardson, even Fields in past years where you couldn't trust him. In the best ball format, you're going to get the best of him every single week. And he's going to have some ceiling games when the Jets have to throw a little bit more and because he's going to score some rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We've got loads of questions in the chat, so I do want to try and take as many of these as possible. Some of them we will loop back to later on. But we've got a question from MTG Sloth in the chat saying, what does premium tight end mean? Premium tight end means just that extra half PPR point on top of your normal 1 PPR point per reception. So we want the guys who see volume. You don't want to inflate guys who aren't going to see volume and are going to just be touchdown reliant. My approach to these kind of drafts is trying not to get left too far behind at any position. But man, I'm getting boxed out of wide receiver today. I really thought that I had a good chance on perhaps Tyreek Hill coming back to me. When I last picked, I felt like I'd just hit the end of a tier with Lad McConkey and AJ Brown going before me. If I wanted to take a wide receiver here, it would be T. Higgins or Garrett Wilson. Other picks I could consider are Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Kyron Williams, Jonathan Taylor, Jared Goff. It isn't much fun at all. I've got 10 seconds left. I'm just going to take T. Higgins because I feel like by the time this comes back to me, it could start looking really painful. Andrew, would you have done anything else, sir?
I mean, I was looking at Jonathan Taylor a little bit, and he just went off at the pick right after you. He fell a decent chunk in this particular draft, and I'm not sure if that's because the Colts quarterback situation is kind of a mess. But we kind of knew that already. So I think that going with Higgins there, again, you still needed the receiver. And he does have some of that correlate. Now, remind me again. So this contest, is it weighted similar to the other playoff weeks in some of these other formats? I know that I just noticed because you have the Cardinals and Bengals stacked there with Higgins and Trey McBride.
Yeah, so I mean, we do want a level of week 17 correlation, but the final is way smaller compared to a lot of the other contests, like on DraftKings, where we talk about facing down 1,000 teams in the final, or when we go over to Underdog and you're similarly talking about these massive finals that you're going to have to really just hit on the absolute nuts to be able to compete against other teams. The finals over here, I think this one is about 70 teams in the final. I'll pull that up and double check. I know that the year I played in the final and had a team that finished top 10, it was only around sort of 70 or 80 teams. Yeah, 78 teams. So we can afford to not necessarily game stack week 17 quite as much. And because of the way that Superflex works, there's so many different builds that you don't tend to end up with as many concentrated players. On Underdog and DraftKings, you can see players in the final who have rostership levels of like 50%, 40%. But because so many Superflex drafts are so different and varied, it does tend to be a little more unusual with how things are built in the final. The year I did well, not to keep banging on about that and to intimidate you, Andrew, but the year I did well, I remember looking at the top 10 teams and there were so few similar builds. It wasn't like we all had similar stacks or, yes, there was several teams that had a couple of players and key players, but it was really spread out. So I do think that you can kind of take a more spread out approach to it. I think I've done about 20 of these drafts so far this season, and I feel like every single time it's a completely different draft room. So Andrew's on the clock.
Some good points.
Andrew's on the clock. Started Jayden Daniels, Ashton Genty, and Drake London. My draft started Bijan Robinson, Trey McBride, Dak Prescott, and T. Higgins. Andrew's making his fourth selection here. Obviously got the quarterback, the running back, and the wide receiver. This would be the kind of range where, personally, as a Sam Laporta fan, I'd almost be considering whether I could get him at this pick or the next pick. But I know Andrew's a little cooler on him. He's got choices like Justin Herbert, Kyron Williams, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Jordan Love. He takes JJ McCarthy went the pick before you. My stream is lagging just slightly. Andrew, you're on the clock.
Oh, yeah,
it's very little time.
Yeah, I got my guy. Yeah, just talking about the Jets passing game and how I'm lukewarm on it. But yeah, but still, if it's going to hit in any way, it's going to be Garrett Wilson. So that's the guy I'm going with here. Pairing him with Drake London. I like the value here. And like I said at the beginning, I'm trying to scoop up some of this receiver running back talent that's falling a little bit because of the quarterbacks getting pushed up. And I'm banking on maybe another quarterback falling to me here again. I'm looking at Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, a couple of guys that even Michael Penix, I could make that stack with Drake London. So I think on the way back, I'm hoping one of those three quarterbacks falls to me. And then I feel pretty good after 5 rounds with 2 quarterbacks, 2 receivers, and a running back. And I guess I'm going a little bit light on tight end despite the tight end premium scoring format.
Yeah, but that's okay because we can make up for it in volume. This format has quite often seen over the years. I think in 2024, the most successful builds were 4 tight end builds. Makes sense because it was a good year for punting tight end. 2023, which is also a strong year for punting tight end. Again, 4 tight end and even 5 tight end builds were really useful in this format. So I don't think we need to worry about him the same way that we do elsewhere sometimes. So it's all about how you spend that draft allocation. Check in the chat asked, if you take a QB early in round 1, do you feel bad taking a tight end in round 2 in tight end premium? Not in the slightest. Like, you take the good guys where you take them in this format, and the difference makers at the top of the draft can absolutely be worth it. Andrew's back on the clock. Bryce Young going just before him. This has been quite a QB run with 6 quarterbacks since my last pick. It feels like I'm going to be facing some poor options. Andrew, are you taking a second quarterback?
Yeah, I think so. But now I'm staring at Herbert, who I have higher in my rankings, and then Jordan Love, who I also really like. So I'm kind of torn here because everything with Herbert in the past week has all been bad news, essentially. So McConkey's banged up, or I guess bringing Keenan Allen was good news for him. But then you have the
Keenan
loss
Allen
of
going to
Rashawn
play left
Slater.
tackle.
Yeah, right. That's really the big that's the big issue. So I still think I'm going to go with Herbert here. I still believe in the talent, and I think he's going to run a lot in this offense. So I'm going to go with Herbert here to pair with Jayden Daniels, so 2 mobile quarterbacks. But I was really strongly considering Jordan Love, who I do really like a lot this year as a quarterback who could throw significantly more. He's got talented playmakers around him, Matthew Golden, Jayden Reed, Tucker Kraft, we obviously love him a lot as one of these late round tight ends that hopefully I can maybe snag in the tight end premium format. But yeah, how do you feel about with this Herbert situation where this losing the left tackle is obviously a big deal? And then McConkey has this like injury going on that's like not talked about enough. It's like they don't want us to know what's actually going on. And after I learned the hard way with the Mark Andrews thing last year, I'm trying to be very, read every report, be like, are we going to get news about McConkey and this injury? Because Mark Andrews has said nothing about it last year and he was fine. And then he wasn't fine to start the season.
Well, the common thing there, it's the Harbaugh brothers. Like, they're not going to talk about it. So, yeah, I think I've got optimism for Justin Herbert. And where you took him there at QB 20, I can't see how that doesn't become a value. Like, if the offensive line struggles, surely then he just gets the quick pass out or scrambles more. Justin Herbert, when healthy, isn't something we've seen a lot of, but he seems to be right now. So, yeah, Justin Herbert is a great quarterback, and I'm kind of okay making that bet. Yes, we make this kind of bet with Trevor Lawrence, and sometimes it just looks really poor for us. But betting on talent and betting on the players around him being good, I'm okay with that. And I think that I would hate to be out on Justin Herbert when it eventually kind of clicks. Jordan Love goes off before me, who was somebody I was eyeing. It means that now my quarterback options are Michael Penix or Tua, Matthew Stafford, obviously sitting in a tin can an awful lot of a minute, and then Geno Smith. So I could take Devontae Adams, James Cook, Alvin Kamara, Michael Penix, Sam Laporta, and I'm going to go with Sam Laporta. Like, if I'm not going to have a really strong quarterback room, I'd like to have a really strong tight end room. So there's definitely a lot of ways that we could build these rosters here. Andrew, how do you feel about going with the double tight end room within the first 5 rounds?
Well, I think this is the format to do it in, right? If you're going to double down on tight end, it's when they score the most points in the 1.5 points per reception. And the fact of the matter is, with the roster construction, this isn't a 3 wide receiver requirement. It's 2 receiver, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, I believe it's 2 running backs, 2 receivers, a quarterback, a super flex spot, and then 2 normal flex spots between a running back, wide receiver, and tight end.
Yes, let me just put so 1 quarterback, 2 running back, 2 wide receiver, 1 tight end, 2 flex, 1 which can be QB, running back, wide receiver, or tight end, and then the second one which is running back, wide receiver, or tight end. So we can start them in a number of positions. So elite tight ends can definitely make your way into your lineup. I had a team in the Fantasy Pros Championship last year, which was $350 redraft, where Brock Bowers and Trey McBride. That was absolutely lethal for me and made me a nice chunk of money. We are rolling through this, but I would be remiss if I didn't tell you about the Twitch live streaming schedule that we have going on over here. All the team across Fantasy Pros, we're taking your questions all week, and we're going to try and get to as many as possible tonight. Myself, Andrew Erickson, every Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern, usually. Seth and Debro, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and then on Thursdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, We have a host of people rolling through, different analysts who you absolutely will recognize. Twitch.tv/fantasy pros. Andrew, it is coming back up to my pick. I feel like I'm starting to be a little bit of behind at wide receiver and behind at quarterback. Which would you prioritize in this instance?
Let's see. Who are the quarterbacks available? Because I hate reaching on quarterback in Superflex. I feel like it's bad process because you take a quarterback and then there's no quarterbacks drafted for the next 4 rounds. And you feel like a total sucker. You're just like, oh no. So I mean, at this point, like, what's the difference between Stafford, Cam Ward, like Sam Darnold? Like, I don't know if you're getting an edge with any of these guys. So take them now versus the skill players that we still really like, or just wait another round. I mean, it's possible you could get more boxed out, but what are you missing from that specific quarterback? So I would thread the needle here. I'd go skill position player unless you really feel confident or really bullish on any of these quarterbacks, which I don't in particular love anyone else in this range.
Well, I'm going to take Cam Ward. I'm going to go against you because.
Well, I'm trying to give you bad advice because we're going head to head. So.
Well, I like Cam Ward, and I feel like, you can add a few undervalued pieces to him, whether it's Calvin Ridley, whether it's Chigozie Okonkwo, who played every snap with Cam Ward the other night. And I know that we had a question in the chat earlier from Dreflix saying, is Cam Ward undervalued with bad division defense and rushing upside? Yeah, we had this question, I think it was last week, Andrew, where somebody asked about the amount of rushing touchdowns for Cam Ward. Were we in on that? And I think the rushing touchdown line was perhaps set a little bit high. But if Cam Ward can get me kind of 4 rushing touchdowns as well as throw for 24, 25, I think getting him here as the QB 25 is good value.
Yeah, I think that he definitely would have been the quarterback I would have picked if I was going quarterback in that situation. So good job, Tom. You picked Cam Ward, a plucky rookie 101 instead of Matthew Stafford and his back injury.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's get back to what's coming up for you, because the MTG Slough is 1 pick ahead of you, sitting at the 104. So far, we've gone Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy, and Kenneth Walker. Like, that's a nice start. He wants to know who you want so he can snipe you.
Who do I want? Oh, man. I mean, I'm probably going to take DK Metcalf. So if you want to take someone that I'm really, really high on, take DK Metcalf.
We've also got a question from Axel saying Fantasy Pros team seem to be high on Kenneth Walker. At what point do you start fading him? Yeah, I mean, the fact that he is still not practicing, Mike McDonald saying we've got a plan for Kenneth Walker, we're going to stick to it. It's not particularly amazing, but I mean, I'm kind of okay with it for a few more days now. Andrew, are you starting to get worried?
I mean, the thing with Walker, it's this constant nagging injury thing that it seems like he's always dealing with. So I do think that there's definitely a cause for concern with him. Now we'll see how things kind of shake out in a couple of weeks, because there's a lot of running backs now that are kind of like battling through a couple injuries here and there. And I mean, a lot, like, I'm always debating with like Ken Walker versus Breece Hall. Like, I'm always staring at those two guys like back to back in my rankings. I see the clear downsides with both of them, but I also see the clear upsides with both explosive running backs who catch passes. And I mean, they fit hero RBs really well, especially if you start with 2 receivers. So,
are you taking a running back here, Andrew, with 10 seconds left?
No, I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to take a guy that's been a really strong tight end producer in TJ Hawkinson. I think that with the Addison suspension, I think Hawkinson has a chance to really emerge as one of JJ McCarthy's go-to targets to start the season. So I think that's going to help me get off to a fast start. And we've seen Hawkinson, when he's been healthy, been a top 5 fantasy tight end. Now, I know those past seasons, it's been different context, who he's been playing with, and it is a bit crowded when Addison does return. But if McCarthy and Hawkinson start to really develop a connection when Addison is gone, I mean, we saw what McCarthy did with Colston Loveland at Michigan, right? This guy really leaned on his tight end. He's a young quarterback. And best friend for a young quarterback is a tight end right over the middle of the field. So Hawkinson, to me, I think that, yes, he's going high relative to the tight ends overall. But in terms of just in this general range, I think that in round 6 for a guy that you feel pretty good about, I like taking him here with the tight end premium because I think he could catch a lot of balls.
Yeah, it feels like TJ Hawkinson is probably one of the least talked about players in the league. like particularly when we talk about the first half of the draft board. Nobody really seems to have strong takes on him being a super value. Nobody seems to be talking about him being a bust. He just seems to be there. And I think that it wouldn't be surprising to see him finish as tight end 4, maybe even sort of tight end 3. I'm not sure I can see him elevating into the Brock Bowers, Trey McBride area, or that kind of like where George Kittle got to last year, where he just ran incredibly efficient and scored so many touchdowns. But I think that TJ Hawkinson is absolutely worth the attention of people. And in this tight end premium format, where we're swinging for upside, I definitely like what you've done with Jayden Daniels, Ashton Genty, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Justin Herbert, and TJ Hawkinson. So the draft will be coming back around to Andrew. There's a lot of different ways you can go. I said I like sort of like not being left too far behind at certain position, most positions in these drafts. And Andrew, you've definitely done a nice job of that. So yeah, 2 picks. I'd hope George Pickens might bring himself all the way back around to me so I could stack him with Dak Prescott. I'll live. There'll still be fun options. Check's asking in the chat, what positions do you like taking more roster spots on? So in this format, I think it really comes down to how the draft plays out. I'm in a situation now where I've only one running back and one wide receiver through this many picks. It is going to take me a little bit of time to find that kind of balance where I'm feeling like both those positions are okay. As a 0 RB slappy, I'm always quite comfortable waiting for running backs later. But on FFPC, the running backs do tend to go a little bit earlier than on underdog. So it's being mindful of that. Like, I would like to push running back now and get to a point where I've got another 2 or 3 wide receivers before I started worrying about running back, but I'm probably not going to be able to. Andrew, are you happy pushing running back for a while, or do you feel like you're going to need to take someone soon?
I feel comfortable pushing the position. I think especially with how deep these rosters are compared to some of these more standard redraft formats where you're not going as deep, because I believe we have 20 rounds. I believe we have 20 picks here, so closer to the DraftKings type of rosters. And I just feel really confident about some of these late round running backs really hitting in a massive way this season. I think that it's kind of the opposite of what happened last year, where veteran running backs hit in a monster way. There was no, besides Bucky Irving, Tyrone Tracy, we didn't have a lot of rookie running back hits. I think we're going to see a ton of rookie running back hits this season, especially with guys that were even day 3 picks. So that's where I want to be stockpiling running backs, taking shots on some late upside players where I feel really strong about my receiver core that I get early. And I obviously, with my last pick, I added Jameson Williams in round 7, kind of to my receiver room, with now features Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, 3 guys I'm pretty excited about having. So I like rounding out the squad with Jama.
Yeah, and then it kickstarted a bit of a tight end run. We saw Evan Ingram, Travis Kelce, and our guy Tyler Warren all go off the board in very quick succession. So then Rashee Rice, Matthew Stafford leaves me with choices of DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Sam Darnold, Devonta Smith, Aaron Jones, Calvin Ridley. Now, part of me feels like I could go with another quarterback and just solidify that, but I really don't want to. I'm saying that I've got the flex potential to end up with one of my tight ends taking up that position and scoring highly. So instead, I am going to go down to a guy that I've been talking up all offseason, Calvin Ridley, who is rising in ADP. Look, guys like DK Metcalf ahead of him, DJ Moore, but I feel strongly that Calvin Ridley is going to outplay his ADP to a nice position. Andrew, I feel like I'm correct in saying that you're with me on the Calvin Ridley hype.
Yeah, I think that Calvin Ridley's been undervalued since we first started doing these best ball live streams. Always an easy glide to click the button on, profiled as Cam Ward's #1 wide receiver. And again, referencing the show that I did earlier today with Jake and Ryan and Worm, just doesn't his path to success this year just seem exactly like what happened with McLaurin last year? Where you get this rookie quarterback upgrade and then you finish as a back-end wide receiver 1, or he finished higher because he ran so hot on touchdowns. But even the Cortland Sutton example, right? You have this veteran player who's never really had that quarterback. Obviously, Ridley had Matt Ryan when he had his fantastic top 5 season, but that seems like ages ago. when he was a part of the Atlanta Falcons. We know Ridley's a talented guy. Again, he's a little bit older, but last year the usage was all in his favor, and we should expect that usage to carry over because it's the same offensive play call. It's the same head coach. So all the air yards that Calvin Ridley saw last year, all the expected fantasy points. I was actually funny. I was looking at an old tweet of mine from last year, and it said, Calvin Ridley, dude, the best guy in my expected fantasy points league. just so good based on the usage he was accumulating last year with Will Levis and Mason Rudolph as his quarterback. So I think Ridley is such a good hit. And the thing is, the only thing I'm concerned about actually is just week one. Week one might not be great because he's playing at the Denver Broncos, but gives you an opportunity to buy low potentially in your redraft leagues for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, you nailed that. I think people are out on him because of the Calvin Ridley experience over the last few years. And look, I get that. I understand that it's something that can be hard to shake at times. The draft board for me is DeAndre Swift, Sam Darnold, Devonta Smith, Aaron Jones, Zay Flowers, Aaron Rodgers, David Montgomery, Travis Hunter, Mark Andrews. So some real upside plays. I can't justify taking another tight end. You know me, I'm a Ravens fan, so Zay Flowers always going to be in contention. But I think that I'm going to push the button on a third quarterback and take Sam Darnold. I'm not expecting it necessarily to be the most fruitful passing offense, but I think that he can be efficient. Between Cam Ward and Sam Darnold, I'll have an okay quarterback room because I really just don't want to take zeros there. I don't want to be playing the 4 or 5 quarterback build game with this roster. I want to be supporting the talents that I've got because between Bijan Robinson, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, I feel like there's a strong chance that I can have the highest scoring running back and at least the highest scoring tight end as well, whether it's one or the other of them. Scoring consistently high definitely matters. It also matters over on Drafters, which is a format which me and Andrew, we've been playing a lot. It's a lot of fun over there. Head over and check out the main event. It's $20 to enter, 500K grand prize. New users get Fantasy Pros code to get 100% deposit match up to $100. Sign up today at drafters.com/refer/fantasy pros. Andrew, talking about scoring a lot of points. How are you feeling about your roster through 7 rounds?
I like it. It's very hero RB on brand with Ashton Genty, and I know exactly, and I'm sticking to it, man. And I'm going with a guy that I'm surprised has fallen this far, considering the preseason usage for Travis Hunter, full-time offensive player. I'm going Travis Hunter here. I'm surprised, 94th overall. I was very surprised that he fell this far.
If I hadn't taken Sam Darnold, he was somebody I was considering for that pure upside swing.
Yeah, I think the Travis Hunter usage, again, it is preseason, so it's not necessarily super concrete, but it's definitely a positive for his development. And it really seems like the only way that Travis Hunter doesn't hit is there are probably a couple of reasons. If he just breaks down, he can't actually play on both sides of the ball full time, and it just doesn't work throughout the entire season. And eventually he has to kind of pick one, and it's defense. And that obviously is going to be not an ideal outcome for anyone that drafts him. Or if Trevor Lawrence just isn't, the guy. I mean, Lawrence, even last year, right? It's as weird as it sounds and to remember, but it was Mac Jones that was the quarterback when Brian Thomas was just like tearing it up at the end of the season. So here's to hoping that Lawrence can finally have his peak year with Liam Cohen, who, all the offensive numbers last year for Cohen with the Buccaneers was just off the charts. Like everything was so good for that offense, anything from fantasy points from the slot. So especially with Hunter playing a lot of his offensive snaps from the slot from the preseason, I think that bodes well for his production.
It was just really noteworthy as well, the fact that we immediately saw screens. That wasn't something we were seeing a lot of for Trevor Lawrence, those kind of layup stuff. That was something we saw Liam Cohen doing so much last year and to such good effect. So, yeah, I was very much intrigued by what I saw. And I think Travis Hunter, as your wide receiver 4, that's a fun roster. How are you feeling about your quarterback room? Aaron Rodgers is still there, but apart from him, it really goes off the cliff. And you might be looking at a situation where it's best to just take 2 guys in like Anthony Richardson, Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones, Tyler Shough, Jackson Dark, Spencer Rattler, Shadur Sanders. Like there is some ambiguity out there which we could take advantage of.
Yeah, I probably would settle on Richardson if I was going to go in the quarterback direction, just because I know when he starts, I can play him. And I mean, if he was the starter for week 1, where would he be in the week 1 rankings? He'd probably be top 15, top 12 quarterback. It's just a matter about the longevity, how long is he going to be there, and the constant, just the injuries with him. And I get that this pinky thing shouldn't be a big deal, but it is really frustrating with him just because we can't get him. You just can't get this guy on the field enough. But I'm also seeing my guy Tucker Kraft on the board, so it's like, am I really going to pass on Tucker Kraft for Anthony Richardson? I don't think so. So I'm gonna go Tucker Kraft here. But Richardson was the other guy I was very much considering.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like, I have really struggled with Anthony Richardson all season long. One stat that I mentioned a few times, but like, you go back to the start of this century, and Anthony Richardson has the lowest completion rate of any quarterback to have 250 dropbacks or more at 47%. The other two guys, like Jamarcus Russell and Tim Tebow, never went on to be starters again after that point. And then Anthony Richardson just can't stay healthy. The positive case for him, going back to when he was drafted, was this guy is bigger than Cam Newton. This guy looks like a linebacker, and it just hasn't worked out in favor. And I really struggle to believe that he's got longevity on his side going forward. But I think when you're in these kind of contests and we are shooting for upside, and when you're not even talking about him, it's not last year where he was the 5th QB off the board. Now you're getting him at what, QB 28, QB 29 prices. That is an acceptable risk to take. And I think that's the right time to do it, particularly when you've got Jayden Daniels and Justin Herbert locked in. Those are pretty high floor players. So I could have seen the argument for it, but also, I mean, look, we've talked about Tucker Kraft all off season, and I'm glad you took him, so I didn't have the choice, because 3 tight ends through 9 rounds would have been quite an unusual build, to say the least. So after your pick, Jacoby Myers, David Montgomery, Brian Robinson, all off the board. Our guy MTG out of the 4 slot now has Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy, Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, Evan Ingram, Isaiah Pacheco, and Jacoby Myers in a very fun roster. If anybody else in the chat is drafting alongside us, do let us know which team you've got so we can keep an eye on you and also not reveal our wish list too soon before your pick. I'm up in 1 pick. I have Bijan Robinson, Trey McBride, Dak Prescott, T. Higgins, Sam Laporta, Cameron Ward, Calvin Ridley, and then Sam Darnold. So now I'm going to ignore the quarterback position. This is not a roster where I feel like I really want to be taking a 4th. I will have 2 QBs on it by in week 10, but I'm not going to worry about that for a while yet. The top players, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Mixon, Jerry Jeudy, Chris Olave, Juwan Jennings, and Erickson. I'm going to stick a knife in your heart with this one. Jordan Mason, how much does that hurt?
Well, it hurts because I definitely could use a Jordan Mason type player on my team because I got 1 running back so far through 9 rounds. So Jordan Mason, yes, one of my favorite late round running backs, basically regardless of format. So it's a killer pick, and curse you, Tom.
Yeah, Jordan Mason, just one of those guys that has been an easy click all off season. Yes, the price is getting higher, but the usage and the coach speak continues to be really strong. So I'm always happy to kind of chase those players further and further up draft boards. And if Jordan Mason gets the goal line role, if Jordan Mason can make even just slight improvements as a pass catcher, then he can be really valuable. But overall, when we're talking about a guy who is RB29, I'm okay with that. I think that's good value. And we're kind of heading into the question mark here. You know, we've looked at this range before, and this is where sometimes you get league winners emerge from it. Guys, whether it's Leonard Fournette, James Conner. Outside of Jordan Mason, is there anybody in this range, Andrew, that you're just absolutely hammering as we get more and more conviction on players this close to the season starting?
Well, I got to admit, someone that I was kind of maybe getting cool on because of the hype for another running back, but we have so far, we're through 9 rounds, and I believe every single Jacksonville Jaguar is still on the board, every running back from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So I think it's just, and I'm going to take a shot on one of these guys because of just my build, the way that things are shaking out for me. But ETN, I mean, he sure looked like the starter to me. playing all the snaps with the first team during the preseason. Now, it was just 1 week. Maybe they switch it up with Tank Bigsby a little bit more in preseason week 2. So I'm kind of interested to see if it carries over. But right now, it looks like ETN is like the guy that's going to be featured. And he was someone that I've been clicking on a lot alongside some of the other Jaguars running backs. I think they're just all too cheap. And if this Jaguars offense takes that leap and is productive like the Buccaneers were last year, then there's a chance that more than one of these Jaguars running backs actually pays off their ADP.
Yeah, it's going to be a tricky one. And I think that the opportunity there is massive. It's a situation which I have avoided possibly a little more than I should have. But one situation I have avoided, and one player who I wasn't drafting a lot of, and I'm willing to accept the L on and just start trying to make up for my poor decisions before now, is Matthew Golden, who consistently has been getting really good praise, really good camp hype. It sounds like he's going to have a very large role to start the season. Have you found yourself just constantly going back to your rankings at this point, Andrew, and just bumping them up slightly, or do you still find it hard to move them higher?
No, I think that both him and Egbuka are just kind of undervalued pieces. I know Egbuka went a little bit earlier than Matthew Golden at the beginning of round 8, and his hype has also been pretty strong coming out of training camp. But there were both first-round picks. And, when I was going back looking at how you value rookie receivers, a rookie receiver on average that's just drafted in the first round, their average fantasy finish is wide receiver 55. And that's really not too far off of, now these guys are going a little bit more aggressive than that because they've obviously caught steam, but in some of these normal redraft formats, like this is where these guys have been more closely ranked, in the low end wide receiver 4 territory. So I think both guys are really good prices where you got Matthew Golden as wide receiver 39. And again, if it's not Romeo Dobbs, if Romeo Dobbs decides, hey, I don't want to play anymore and he gets suspended by the team again, which happened last year. Like, don't forget that Dobbs got suspended by his own team last year for 1 game because he was complaining. I mean, Matthew Golden should be the leader in at least routes for the Green Bay Packers. And I already talked about earlier Jordan Love. And just given the fact that, Reed is now dealing with a foot injury. Yeah, it's like, for me, it's like I still like Reed a lot, but if you have to make me pick a receiver right now to draft, like I'm probably going to prefer Matthew Golden just because the projection looks a little bit cleaner. And again, he's first round pick, talented guy coming out of Texas. So yeah, I think it's a really good pick that you made.
Yeah, and if you want to see mine and Andrew's rankings along with so much more, head over to fantasypros.com/best ball. The best ball draft kit is just the most beautiful piece of work. There are so many great articles in it. Some of my favorite articles I write every year about roster construction strategy are part of that. There's also so much great content around stacks, rookie breakdowns, ADP risers, all of it's in there. fantasypros.com/best ball, and it will absolutely set you up for a big August because my God, there is a big few weeks of drafts ahead. I am trying to find so many points to draft that, hey, it's midnight my time, 10 to 1 in the morning. I ain't tired. I'm ready to go. So, my roster sitting here with a 3 quarterback, 2 running back, 3 wide receivers, and 2 tight end build. Andrew, you're sitting with 2 quarterback, 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, and 2 tight ends. In a pretty good state at tight end. It's hard to imagine you need another tight end here. Hard to imagine you need another wide receiver here. Probably, I'm guessing that you're going to be leaning towards more the running back position or the quarterback position. You got Stephon Diggs, Russell Wilson, Jaylen Warren, Tyrone Tracy, Dalton Kincaid, Cam Scatterbo, who goes off the board just before you. Chris Godwin, Etienne, Jayden Reed. Are you taking one of these Jags running backs? Are you pulling one up?
Yep. Yeah, I'm going to go with Etienne. That's the guy that I'm going to go with here. And again, he's right now slotted in as my RB2. And if I can take his week 1 early season production, if he remains the starter for the Jags offense. So again, there was a couple guys left here that I felt could offer me some early season production if they don't, lose the job or something like that, which I could definitely see in Etienne's range of outcomes where, 2 in or Bigsby kind of overtakes him as the season goes on. But just the fact that I punted off running back so much, I do need to get some early season production in that RB2 slot, and getting it here in round 10. I mean, getting him ahead later than Scatterbo, who the vibes of Scatterbo have just been not great since he got banged up and injured. And I'm surprised that he actually went behind Tyrone Tracy, who to me, it seems like he's kind of locked and loaded as the RB1. And I get that he was a 5th-round pick. He's more of a fragile type of bet. But if Scadaboo's, what do they say? You can't make the team in the ice bath, or what? There's a better phrase for it. And Tyron Tracy just went off here. You can't make the club in the tub. That's the expression. Well, he's going to make the team, but he is banged up. And yeah, we saw Tracy go right after. So it was between Tracy and Etienne for me. And we obviously saw Tracy go right after Etienne here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's not uncommon to kind of see the Giants running backs that close. But yeah, very interesting to see Scadabo going first. Our guy MTG Sloth in the draft and in the chat with us, let us know how strong you are for Cam Scadabo, wherever conviction comes from. I'd love to hear that. Yardley, my rankings will be updated tomorrow. Yep, they are definitely in need of a refresh. Check saying, what makes roster construction so important as opposed to just taking the best players available? Love this question because this is a really interesting one. I think a lot of people come to best ball and it's like, why are you focusing so much on zero RB, hero RB, robust running back? Just take the best players. And that's a completely fair statement to make. It's just quite difficult to work out who the best players are and to take them in the best situation. Now, what roster construction can make up for is years and years of data show us that building in certain ways in certain years, taking advantage of how the draft board falls to us positionally, can make up for that. Last year, I had some bad player takes. I faded Saquon Barkley. I had too much of various players that didn't work out particularly well, but I still had really solid advance rates. I think on DraftKings, where I drafted over 300 teams, I had an advance rate of 28%, which is 10% above average. And I would put that down to just using roster construction, understanding where I wanted to prioritize certain positions and certain picks. Now, it doesn't always work out. It's not foolproof, but generally, roster construction across the course of the years has shown to increase your chances of winning and advancing by slight differences. And slight differences, that's what we're after sometimes when it comes down to best ball. Andrew, you're on the clock with a couple of seconds left. Where are you going with this pick?
Going to the running back position. Did not double down on Jaguars running backs. Going with Dylan Sampson. For the Cleveland Browns, I need some more running back firepower. And we've lost a lot of our favorite round running backs here. Tajay Spears, He's banged up. Rashad White, he's banged up. So I'm like trying to find someone else that I can kind of pull up as, okay, who's a running back that I want to go with? And again, I was considering going with another Jaguars running back, but I just noticed too that, Jed T has a week 8 bye week. Travis Etienne has a week 8 bye week. So I'm just trying to look at the bye weeks a little bit. It actually was, I'm using the draft assistant right now on Fantasy Pros, and it notified me like, hey, dummy, you got a lot of bye weeks coming up with these running backs. Maybe don't take a running back on that has a bye week in week 8. So drafted accordingly. Shout out to the draft assistant helping me out. And went with Dylan Sampson because the vibes with Quinshon Judkins are just not good. Not good, Tom. I don't know what is going on with him. He still hasn't signed his contract.
Yeah.
It's right now, Dylan Sampson looks like has a runway to be significantly involved alongside Jerome Ford to start the season.
Yeah, very much so. I think Judkins is a very difficult click right now. Tajay Spears towards the top of ADP, somebody who I would definitely describe as a difficult pick coming off the high ankle sprain that he suffered this weekend. Chris Godwin, Jayden Reed, Khalil Shakir, Cooper Kupp, Daniel Jones, Josh Downs, Javonte Williams, Tajay Spears, Michael Pittman, Hunter Henry. Those are the names that are kind of sitting there for me. I do only have 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. But my plan for the rest of the draft is largely going to be focused around running back and wide receiver position. So I'm okay right now just continuing to lean into those 2. There's not anybody that I love massively in a way that I think that it'll help my roster really stand out. So instead, I'm going to take a guy who I've been high on for the last couple of years, and I think we can still see another level from, and that is Josh Downs. Yes, we have terrible quarterback play to deal with, but man, there's so much upside to Josh Downs when you dive into some of the analytics and some of the stats, and I'm happy to be wrong on Josh Downs. If I end up being wrong on him, it's round 11. So Axel saying, what RB going off the board shifts you to looking at the top handcuffs? What handcuff running backs do you guys like? I put out a video on my channel, the Fantasy Sanctuary, today talking about my favorite running back sleeper, I guess, the best value running back for me in the entire ADP. It's Tyler Algier. I just still, now I wouldn't take him on this team with Bijan Robinson, but the gap between where Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier go is so mammoth compared to the rest. There's like, I think it's about 15 different RB2s being drafted before Tyler Algier. Andrew, who's your favorite handcuff?
My favorite handcuff. So we're talking strictly just.
Yeah, you can't have David Montgomery.
Okay. So basically, I think for me, and it's someone that I was lower on, but again, we talked about some of the guys that were injured. It was probably Spears before, and we talked about Rashad White. Like we like those guys, and now they're both hurt. So it's always a really big red flag to me when backup running backs get constantly banged up like Garendo. Like that to me is a big red flag with his profile, where he's not even seeing like this full complement of touches, but he's constantly banged up and he's already hurt. And now both of Chris McCaffrey's backups are hurt right now. So that's an interesting conversation. I would say for me, it goes back to Trey Benson. I loved him coming out of Florida State and obviously didn't pop off last year, but I just know that James Conner, when he's healthy, he's going to be a monster. He's the Terminator for them. But if he does miss time, I think the team is open to the idea that, hey, we can feature Trey Benson. And although the coach speak has kind of been mixed with him, they've talked about it sometimes of him getting more involved alongside of James Conner. And even in the preseason, we didn't really see that as much. He did play with the starters, but it was after James Conner left the game. So I think it's still clearly a RB1, RB2 situation. But I do believe Benson has the skill set entering year two to take a massive leap, especially if Conner misses time. And that's traditionally what's happened with James Conner. He usually doesn't play a full complement of games. So he's someone that even on this team right now, he's still on the board. He's someone that I'm definitely circling as another running back target.
Well, Andrew, I hate to do this to you, but thank you.
Oh, no. You just had to do it.
I thought about cutting you off. I thought about like letting you know that I was also high on Trey Benson, but when you look at the board, look, those guys like Jayden Blue, Ramondre Stevenson, but Trey Benson definitely feels like the most upside pick. And I just believe in the running scheme in Arizona more than I believe in the Cowboys running scheme. When I took Dak Prescott, I said that I thought this is a team that could be throwing the ball a lot because I don't believe in the ground game. So reaching down and getting someone like Trey Benson did appeal to me. I did give some thought to taking another tight end here because as the draft's gone on, I've realized that Trey McBride and Sam Laporta share the same bye week. So I'm going to need at least one more, but that's okay. 3 tight ends kind of feels fine in this format overall. Axel saying, what are your favorite rookie wide receivers after McMillan and Hunter? Yeah, I mean, those guys are fantastic. How are you feeling about your boy Kyle Williams in New England, Andrew?
So interesting to see how he was deployed in the preseason. He did get a couple snaps with some of the starters, but he's still kind of working his way up the depth chart, which I think is just kind of what we should expect when guys aren't drafted in the first 2 rounds, especially wide receivers. Like they do have to really earn those repetitions and status atop the depth chart. So I don't think it's like full blown panic. I think that it is going to take some time for him to get acclimated into that starting lineup. But the biggest point, and this is from Nathan Yonke, who I think does excellent preseason analysis because he's done it for so many years. He can really provide good context, but it's really good that he's already ahead of Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. That's a really big takeaway. So I want to hear your thoughts as well. I'm on the clock, so I'm just going to make my pick.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not somebody who watches film and is going to give you the nuances of what a player is doing to an extreme level. But when you watch Kyle Williams film, it's like dude can ball out, and it doesn't take an advanced mind to be able to tell you that. So yeah, very much like what Kyle Williams is doing. Emeka Egbuka is just earning so many rave reviews in training camp from players who don't necessarily need to give him those rave reviews. So Egbuka is somebody that I've been trying to push up my rankings and make sure that I get plenty of. And in general, once we get deeper, it's not necessarily a year where I feel like there are players that I'm desperate for at wide receiver. These are guys I like, but I tend to just lean towards correlation and stacks, little bits like that to try and break the tie every now and again. Andrew, you took Bishal Tootin, handcuffing him with Travis Etienne. Is that something you do often in best ball?
Well, I think that this particular case, and I even talked about it when I drafted ETN, was I don't think it's really like a handcuff situation. I think it's more, ETN breaks down, or he's not as effective as they hoped he would be, like we've seen the last couple of years at the end of the season, and they just decide, hey, we're going to go in a different direction with Bishal Tootin. Now, I still think maybe one of these running backs for the Jaguars gets traded, whether it's Tank Bigsby or Travis Etienne. Maybe all of these first team reps with the starting offense are just a way for them to showcase Etienne and say, hey, like he's open for business. Like come get Travis Etienne. And we really want to take Bigsby and Bishal Tootin to be our guys. So again, because I punted off running back, I really want to hone in on some of these rookies that I think have some upside, which is why I went back to back with Sampson. Again, a day 3 rookie running back, but I think has an opportunity for touches in the Browns offense. And then Bishal Tootin, handpicked by this new staff. And I'm quietly building a Jaguars stack between Hunter, Travis Etienne, and Bishal Tootin. So Duval, baby.
What could possibly go wrong? So zooming out and just taking a minute to look at the board in general, we've got a whole range of different builds. The team out of the 12 spot, Drake May, Michael Penix. They also have Colston Loveland, Brenton Strange. So some real swings there. They've got Marion Hampton at the top of round 3. We've got Malik Neighbors, Ted McMillan, Emeka Ibuka. So again, loads of upside, but a lot to do there. Out of the 4 slot, we've got MTG, who went double wide receiver at the start, followed by double quarterback, and then really made up for the fact that he'd taken this kind of dual wide receiver start by hammering running back with 6 running back selections between round 5 and round 12. Obviously, we've got the teams near the turn who have the elite quarterbacks in Lamar, Josh Allen. Those kind of teams have both taken similar approaches where they've also been spreading out their picks after that point. Does anything stand out in this room to you, Andrew? And feel free to just hold that thought until after your pick if you need to.
Yeah, I'm probably going to hold that thought because I am up in 1 pick.
I don't want you crumbling under the pressure and making a bad pick or anything. It's.
I mean, this could be a bad pick. I'm not sure. I'm pulling somebody up, so we'll get your live reaction to me, quote unquote, reaching on a player. But I think it's more or less because the ADP.
Yeah. So for viewers who can't see, it is a case of guys like Ramondre Stevenson, Quinshon Judkins, Daniel Jones at the top of ADP, Hunter Henry, Tyler Shook, Darnell Mooney, Jonnu Smith, Isaiah Likely, Rashid Shaheed, Rashad White, Isaac Guerrero, Najee Harris, Brandon Ayuk, Marvin Mims, Luther Burden, Jerome Ford, Trey Harris. Is this going to be... Oh, you've already made your pick, Andrew. Keenan Allen, how far ahead of ADP did you pull him?
I think he was around... Where was he? I think he was in the 170s somewhere. So possible that he came back to me, but I think that Keenan Allen, to me, I mean, I don't know what the
he's only rising.
Market sentiment is on him. If people aren't into, I mean, he's an older receiver. Don't get me wrong. He's 33 years old, but he's got a connection with, and I just forgot, I got Justin Herbert on my team, man. If Justin Herbert's going to ball out in any way, he's going to bring Keenan Allen along for the ride. So now I have the Chargers stack. I missed out on, I didn't bring this up when it happened, but I was going to take Terry McLaurin when he was falling, but he went right before my pick. So, because I wanted to get the stack with Daniels, but this way I am getting a wide receiver quarterback stack with Keenan Allen back in LA/San Diego.
Yeah, I think where you took Keenan Allen was completely fair. We are seeing him continue to rise. He'll be somebody that goes into the FFPC Rise and Fallers article, which I write a couple of times a month. And this area in round 13 kind of feels fair. Like, you look at the guys around. Darnell Mooney, currently injured. Christian Kirk, somebody that people don't expect to keep his job for the entire year. Rashid Shaheed, dealing with one of the worst quarterback rooms in the league. So I can very much understand that. So, Andrew, I'll let you talk about what you're kind of seeing in the room and stuff that stands out to you whilst I make my next pick.
Yeah, so let's see. So I want to see who is picking in front of me, because I probably should get an idea of the guys that are picking right after me so I can push certain players. So again, we all started with quarterbacks. I would say, well, one of them has also gone pretty light at running back, who had the 101. That was big deal. SFB 86. So he went a little bit later at running back. He also only has, or he or she also has only 4 running backs. I have 4 running backs as well. So we're going definitely with a hero RB approach, especially with both starting off our teams with rookie running backs. I think that's kind of interesting. So we're following pretty similar builds, but then the second drafter at the 102 went really aggressive with quarterback early on, and then has also been pounding away at the running back position with 4 running backs in the last 5 rounds. So I think those are some interesting picks. Again, I think that we're entering an area of the draft where, yeah, I think there's a couple wide receivers we like here and there, but I think that more often than not, if you're not trying to hit on one of these late round receivers, I think that this is the area where you just start to take shot after shot, running back. Hope for chaos, hope for something working in their favor. And I don't necessarily mind pulling certain players up, because if you have too many receivers on your roster, again, it's a little bit different in best ball where you're always going to get that spike week production. But in redraft formats, which we kind of always like to talk about even through the lens of best ball, sometimes it's hard to figure out when to start these guys, which is something that I always need to remind myself when I'm moving away from best ball drafts to regular season-long leagues, managed leagues, that, yeah, having all those receivers with upside on your bench looks great in best ball, but then when you have to put those guys in your lineup, it can be really, really frustrating. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind as you make the mental shift for those that are drafting in best ball drafts and then making the shift to managed leagues.
Yeah, so another guy on the rise, Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt, goes off the board, or Bill, as he has become known by a lot of people. I think that's the kind of situation where we're at now as we get round to the last third of this draft. We are in round 14. I took Isaiah Likely with my last pick to make up for the fact that I had Trey McBride and Sam Laporta on the same bye weeks. I don't want Daniel Jones, but he continues to kind of fall. We're pick 159, Daniel Jones with an ADP of 131. Other people in this range that I would be looking at, I still need a running back. There's Najee Harris, there's Rachaad White. I don't want to do it. There's Jalen Wright. I take Tyler Algier, but I don't love the idea of handcuffing Bijan Robinson, because there's other backfields I could talk myself into, but that one feels a little like I'm saying Bijan isn't going to play the whole year. There's not much that I want to do. So if in doubt, let's just lean into my guys, the Ravens, and just look. Maybe it's not a full-blown team stack, but we're just leaning into the idea that good teams score points. Rashad Bateman last year was fantastic. And I know, Andrew, that you're in on Rashad Bateman with me.
Yeah, this is like one of the better formats for him because he's super efficient. And if anything happens to one of the other Zay Flowers or Mark Andrews, he would fall. I mean, all he really needs is volume. And unfortunately, the situation right now, that doesn't necessarily lend itself to having him getting a ton of volume in the Ravens offense, but just takes one injury to one of the top guys for him to get an opportunity. And we feel pretty confident that Rashad Bateman is a good receiver. And if he had been traded to the Dallas Cowboys, he'd probably be going, probably not that far away from where George Pickens is going right now. right. We would be really excited, but he's still on the Ravens.
Well, there's a good question, Ben. So, if it had happened, would you take Rashad Bateman ahead of where George Pickens goes? So George Pickens went wide receiver 22, coming off a season where Rashad Bateman hit career highs, looked healthy for all intents and purposes. Would you be able to justify taking him inside the top 20 wide receivers, the range where we've got guys like Devontae Adams, Courtland Sutton, Mike Evans, Xavier Worthy, Tet?
I don't think I would take him that high. I think that's probably a little aggressive because Pickens, I think his body of work is a little bit more impressive than Bateman just because he's had probably longer streaks of production. And last year was really the first year that Bateman kind of put it all together after flashing. So I think that'd be aggressive. But if he was in that top 36 range as a wide receiver 3, right now you got him at wide receiver 57. I think that would be more than fair for a player that would be attached to Dak Prescott. And that could definitely be a lot of fun. But alas, that is a fantasy world that we are talking about. And who knows, but maybe Rashad Bateman will get some volume.
Yeah, so MTG picking next to you takes Brandon Ayuk, who Kyle Shanahan said today he expects back for around the week 6 range. Now, Kyle Shanahan definitely not trustworthy on these kind of things, but week 6, that'd be a fairly good result for MTG, who gets him in round 14 as his 5th wide receiver behind Jamar Chase, Nico Collins, Jacoby Myers, Rashid Shaheed, and Brandon Ayuk. Andrew, where are you going with this pick?
Going with your favorite handcuff running back, Tyler Algier, because you took mine. So I'm going to take yours, even though you said you would take him if it wasn't for Bijan being on your team. But it doesn't matter because I agree. I think that he's being undervalued just based on, yes, we're really excited about Bijan Robinson. And this is something that I think that everyone should bring to the table when we're talking about Saquon and all the touches and McCaffrey. Well, Bijan Robinson's coming off 600 touches over the last 2 seasons, which is a significant amount of work. Now, that's not gonna stop me from drafting him, but there is a case to be made against Bijan where what if he does miss a couple games with the usage that he's gotten as a bell cow back? And Algier, look, if they're up in a game, if they're beating up on a lesser team, this Falcons offense really takes off, I could expect us to see a decent amount of Algier in the second halves of those games, just to kind of take some of the wear and tear off of Bijan so that he can be healthy for a 17-game season for the Falcons in real life as they're trying to win the NFC South. So I think Algier, yes, for the most part, it's going to be a strict handcuff type of guy. But, I mean, this guy was at 1,000-yard rusher as a rookie. Like, we know that he can be productive. And if he gets the opportunity, he's going to be a big hit.
Yeah, he's had 6 top 36 weekly finishes across the last 2 seasons. Like, he does have some of that standalone value, not to the point of like David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, but he is viable on weeks and he will give you those points. Like, if he gets the touchdowns, it can work out. And we know that he's an explosive guy, 10th in explosive run rate, 7th in juke rate. There's so much to like about Tyler Algier, and I have to applaud you for having your Michael Scott how to turn tables moment there, because that one's stung. But let's talk about one of the questions we got in the chat from Lethal Poots. Thoughts on Rico Dowdle is current consensus ADP. So he is going in consensus rankings at 153rd, RB 52. Similar range in the consensus rankings. He seems to be really lowly ranked across the board. Do you think that Rico Dowdle can steal the receiving work away from Chuba Hubbard? Chuba Hubbard isn't terribly great in the receiving game, but would that be enough to make Rico Dowdle more valuable than he's being valued?
I think so. So that was one of the biggest things that stood out to me when watching some of these preseason games was Dowdle's usage in the receiving game. That's not something that I necessarily expected to see because they drafted ETN. He was a pass catcher. He also had a fumble on one of the punts, which was not great for a rookie. But I was really just shocked at how Dowdle was used in that capacity. And he actually had a really nice catch down the field, which I was really kind of surprised at. So Dowdle I was like in on, and then I kind of like cooled off because I was concerned about, okay, like how good is this guy really? He's like a 5 or 6 year running back breakout that it took a half a season for him to get started over Ezekiel Elliott. And maybe that was really more just about Zeke than him. So he is someone that I'm starting to be more open to after kind of cooling on, just because I think that Hubbard just doesn't offer a lot as a receiver. So I think that's a reason to be bullish on Dowdle, but I'm not going to go in that direction here. I'm going to go with another player that I think could see a rise continue. And it's a rookie running back, Kyle Monangai for the Chicago Bears. Roshan Johnson currently right now is dealing with a injury, I believe. And it's like the first time we've talked about him all year. It's unfortunate that he's banged up. I know the Bears have been sniffing around, maybe adding another running back. I think
they had Jamal Williams in for a visit. Yeah.
So that would obviously pour some cold water on Monangai, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. I mean, look, Roshan Johnson's somebody that I had plenty of conviction in. I thought that we were just starting to turn a corner. Him getting banged up is definitely not something that I felt particularly pleased to see. So, yeah, after you, next pick, Wan'Dale Robinson goes to MTG. We are in round 15 here. Andrew's team, Jayden Daniels, Ashton Genty, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Justin Herbert, TJ Hawkinson, Jameson Williams, Travis Hunter, Tucker Kraft, Travis Etienne, Dylan Sampson, Bishal Tootin, Keenan Allen, Tyler Algier, Kyle Monangai. My team 1 pick away from picking again. Bijan Robinson, Trey McBride, Dak Prescott, T. Higgins, Sam Laporta, Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley, Sam Darnold, Jordan Mason, Matthew Golden, Josh Downs, Trey Benson, Isaiah Likely, and the breakout wide receiver, Rashad Bateman. So what I'm staring down at ADP is Quinshon Judkins, Rashad White, Trey Harris, Nick Chubb, Cedric Tillman, Jalen Wright, Joe Flacco, Roschon Johnson, rest in peace, Darren Waller, Josh Palmer, Adam Thielen, Woody Marks, Xavier Legette, Rico Dowdle. Like, it's not a fun range. I feel like I've possibly left myself a little bit short at the running back position. I am going to take Rashad White. You said I could take him. I'm going to take him. And reports suggest that Rashad White is day to day with, I believe it's an ankle injury. Like, it's not week to week. When we start hearing that somebody is week to week, that's when it becomes a bigger concern. That's when the missed time is going to accumulate and open up more for another player. But Rashad White is so good in the passing game that I'm convinced that he's still going to hold a role, even if he misses a little bit of time. Andrew, would you have taken Rashad White if he'd made it all the way back to you?
Only if Quinshon Judkins didn't make his way back to me. The fall for Judkins is just insane. And I get it because it's really hard to try to project what he's going to do this year. Is he just going to be a roster clogger? I considered him at my last pick instead of Monangai just because I do have Dylan Sampson. So I don't mind taking shots on these Cleveland Brown running backs. And the guy that took him also has Jerome Ford. So I think it's a sharp play that it looks like number 1. That's the team name is number 1, team 10, number 1, or picking 10th overall. I think that's the way you play it. You draft one of these other running backs, either Sampson or Ford earlier on, and then you throw on Judkins and you just kind of see how things shake out. Because, I mean, where were we drafting Judkins before any of this stuff happened with him with off the field? He was a round 7 pick? Right around that. So you're definitely getting some, closing line value getting him this late. So that's something that's worth considering. But I think that that's the best way to approach it. So I really like what this team did while drafting Ford, RB50, and then following up with Judkins at RB55.
So I followed Rashad White by taking Woody Marks. I think that it's easy to see the Texans wanting to get somebody with Woody Marks' skill set onto the field. Now, obviously, this could backfire spectacularly for me. This could be the kind of pick where he ends up getting cut before we get to the season. But Woody Marks does one thing particularly well, and that is catch the ball. I mean, he averaged over 50 receptions a year in his 3 years in college. And if the offensive line isn't going to be good for the Texans this year and they need to get the ball out quickly, then screens, quick passes to the running back would be a good way to do that. So Woody Marks, RB57 feels okay. I now have 5 running backs. But Erickson, you are back on the clock. Just 2 quarterbacks. Are you leaving it at 2 and just punting the position entirely?
I am not going to punt it entirely. I think I'm going to add a third guy at some point. I'm just not exactly sure who that player will be. I know Flacco is the one that's kind of staring me back in my face right now as the top guy, but Milroe is really interesting because if he gets opportunities to play, I think that he's going to score fantasy points with his legs. Shadur Sanders is still available. I mean, does he not offer a lot if he gets a chance to start in this Browns offense? I know that, the preseason for him, got to take it with a grain of salt because who is he playing against? It's not great, but it didn't look like the moment wasn't too big for Shadur Sanders. It didn't look like he was out of place. Yeah. He didn't look like a 5th round pick, I think is the way to Shadur Sanders. The talent was not of a 5th round level. He fell in the draft for other reasons, for not being prepared and just people not wanting to deal with the nonsense, but the talent is clearly there to some aspects. So he's someone that I'm also looking at. And even someone like Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I think we all feel pretty confident that Stafford's going to miss some games this season. When and where that happens, I'm not so sure, but Jimmy Garoppolo steps in with Adams, Puka Nacua. You feel pretty good about that guy having a couple spike weeks, even like we saw last year, I believe at the end of the season, week 18, Garoppolo had a pretty nice stat line. So he's someone else I'm also kind of looking at.
Or would you like to draft the actual starter for the Rams when Matthew Stafford's out in Kirk Cousins?
Oh, So that's what you think? That's the conspiracy theory is they're going to land Kirk Cousins. Oh
the
man,
Kirk Cousins infatuation has been long and strong for Sean McVay. It feels like now they could get him at the cheapest price ever. Now, obviously, they'd have to give up some draft capital or rejig contracts and stuff. But like the Rams have been so aggressive over the years that I just wouldn't rule it out for them. You're back on the clock. Kirk Cousins o'clock?
No, it is not Kirk Cousins o'clock. We're gonna go, with a quarterback I just talked about. We're gonna go with the guy that I think will maybe start the most games for the Cleveland Browns this year, and I'm gonna go with Shedeur Sanders. There you go.
Smart. If you're in the chat and watching along, let us know which Cleveland Browns quarterback you think is going to start the most games. Do you think that you're buying into Shedeur Sanders, or was it just a preseason game? Let us know how you feel about these teams as we are rolling in to the middle of round 17. Definitely a lot of different builds here. I think my priority when it comes back to me is still building out these running back and wide receiver rooms. Obviously, the way I started this draft with Bijan Robinson, Trey McBride, Dak Prescott, T. Higgins, Sam Laporta, Cam Ward, it didn't leave me particularly stacked there. But now I've got a running back room with Bijan Robinson, Jordan Mason, Trey Benson, Rashad White, Woody Marks. Wide receiver room with T. Higgins, Calvin Ridley, Matthew Goldman, Josh Downs, and Rashad Bateman. So I feel fairly good about all of it. Andrew, where would you say your biggest weakness is at on your team?
Definitely running back. I think that's pretty safe to say just because I punted the position after Genty until round 10. But I'm, I guess, comfortable with that. I think that when you do these, this isn't a 0 RB build, but when you're doing the really traditional 0 RB, hero RB teams, they never look the sexiest, I think, right after the draft. I think that's part of the allure and charm of those types of rosters where on paper you look at it and you think, man, this team looks terrible. What am I doing at running back? But if anything, Tom, it reminds me of when you pull up your roster, right? You get the league notification for your league that says, hey, we're renewing for the 2025 season. And you pull up your team and you look at who's in your starting lineup for week 17 or whenever the last you played. And you're thinking to yourself, who are all these scrub running backs that I have on my team?
Yes.
So it's definitely a bet on the second half of the season, buying into running back chaos. There's going to be injuries at the position. So yeah, week 1 comes around. Yeah, I'm probably not going to score that many points at running back. I can feel pretty confident saying that, but I think I can win at receiver, at tight end, at quarterback early on to kind of get me through, and then have the running backs be my hammer in the second half of the season. So at least that's the ideal, or that's the optimistic way of looking at things. So yeah, but I will continue to look at some of these running backs with our last 3 picks that we have going.
Yeah, I was going to take a wide receiver, but a guy came to mind who I can get much later. So instead, I'm going to take DJ Giddens, somebody that I've been quite high on all off season. I think that running behind Jonathan Taylor, he's the clear RB2 there for the Colts. And I think that he's going to have opportunities, and potentially, if Daniel Jones is the quarterback, then he might be able to catch enough passes to really have some value. So I like adding DJ Giddens, but there's a wide receiver who I would like to make it back to me, who I've put in the queue, who has an ADP of 319. Andrew, would you like to take a guess on who it is?
You said it's a wide receiver?
A wide receiver with an ADP of 319. No looking. Don't be cheating.
319. I mean, Devontae Walker? Are we doing more Ravens players?
No. Well, I mean, it'd be DeAndre Hopkins next if we were going to do that.
Oh, of course. It'd be DeAndre Hopkins. Is it a preseason buzzy guy? Is it someone that like kind of popped out? It's not
Maybe.
Troy Franklin? Is it? No, it's probably not him. Yeah. Man, I don't know. I'm excited to see who this is because I am drawing straws at it's not like Zay Jones or anything like that, right? Is it?
Is Zay Jones getting buzz?
Oh no. Oh, I am. Ooh, I'm waiting with bated breath. Oh, there we go. Yes.
Jalen Coker. Jalen Coker very much rising up ADP and getting all the kind of hype that we want to see at this point. And getting him as wide receiver 73 in round 18, I feel quite confident that somebody would have been starting to scroll down and would have had them on their list. Producer Sal saying Velas Jones Jr. It was not Velas Jones Jr. But I feel like, this is the time of year where you've got to chase hype that warrants it. We talk about that all the time, but like there's a time not to chase hype, but the hype has been so steady and so consistent that I'm buying that. And look, we're going to keep talking about these players that we buy into each and every week. Myself and Andrew will be here on Mondays streaming on Twitch, but it's not just myself and Andrew. You've also got Seth and Debro who answer your questions on Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Also got other Q&As on Thursdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. That's it. Put the laptop down. Stop doing your work. Get yourself over here for Q&As. Get in these drafts in these chats before your drafts at the weekend. Make sure you hit the follow button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. When you do that, you get a bunch of additional benefits over here on Twitch, different emojis, ad-free, all that stuff. And it really helps us out and helps us continue to bring you these streams. Andrew, you are one pick away from being on the clock again with 3 picks left. You've got 2 tight ends and 3 quarterbacks. Any more picks going those ways?
I'm thinking about adding another tight end here just to kind of round out my roster. And it's someone that I honestly have pretty much ignored, I think, the entire fantasy process. But he's a guy that is really interesting among the tight ends. And his name is Juwan Johnson for the New Orleans Saints. Former wide receiver. Again, if the Saints offense plays at a fast pace, which some are projecting with Kellen Moore, they play in a dome. He also got paid this offseason. If you just look at the average salaries of the top tight ends, Juwan Johnson's up there. He's pretty highly paid. So again, we're in round 18 now. He's still getting 1.5 points per his reception. And if it's not Olave or Shaheed that steps up, or one of those guys gets banged up again, well, you could see Juwan Johnson, coming off career highs across the board in terms of receptions and yardage. You could see him kind of popping off here a little bit. So that's going to be my 3rd tight end.
I like that pick. I think that you look at some of the stuff that Kellen Moore's done over the years. Yes, he didn't necessarily feature tight ends when he was with the Chargers, or even last year, Dallas Goedert didn't feel like the centerpiece. But Juwan Johnson is a different type of player to the guys who were with those teams. And if he funnels things through the slot where Juwan Johnson plays sometimes, then that could be really beneficial. After Tyler Lockett goes off the board, we're kind of seeing a lot of punt picks in this range. Jack Besh, Trey Harris, Noah Gray went 1 pick before you. Harold Fannin went off the board. So it is very much scroll down, find you guys. Joe Flacco still sitting there. Xavier Legette, Alec Pierce, Tyler Higbee, Calvin Austin, Spencer Rattler, Kirk Cousins, Kendre Miller. This is the graveyard. There's one guy though who I'm going to throw in my queue. There's another guy who's getting a little bit of hype, who I'm hopeful will make it back to me. Andrew, if you take him, it's going to be very disappointing.
You said it was a running back?
Yeah, let's go with running back. Yeah, sure.
Oh. I'm
running back.
I'm searching. There's not a lot of good running backs that I like. I think there's one guy left, or there's actually 2 guys left that I would consider draft. Actually, I can get one right now. So I'm going to go with the aforementioned Kendre Miller. It looked like he was the RB2 at least behind Alvin Kamara. And I was doing some deep dive. So again, this is probably because I was doing some Saints research late on Friday of last week, which is why I've now drafted back-to-back Saints players who I've probably.
I mean, they look to be a really good team this year.
Exactly. So usually I'm just like, whatever, cross off all Saints. But now we're in the late rounds, 19th, 20th round. And I think when you're looking at bad offenses and bad teams, you always want to try to get them at the cheapest possible price. So that's why I'm really diving in the dumps for these 2 types of players. But Miller, they've talked about how it's a fresh start for him, and they're not carrying over what the former coaching staff thought about him. And I think it was the running backs coach that was on the Saints when they first drafted him. And he called him a stud when they drafted him. Film doesn't lie. This guy's an absolute stud. Just got to get him, up to speed, etc. And then he left, went through another team. He came back to the Saints to be the running backs coach this year. And I think that he's going to play a big role in Kendre Miller. like, I don't expect Alvin Kamara necessarily to see, like, how many carries is Kamara going to get in his offense? Like, we know that he's going to deliver with the PPR and the receptions out of the backfield, but I still think that there's room for a ball carrier in this offense. I think that could be Kendrick Miller if he stays healthy. Devin Neal, we know, is banged up. So I like Kendrick Miller. Again, loved him as a prospect. He's free now, and I needed a running back. So that's the direction I went. And I saw that you went Seattle Seahawks receiver Torrey Horton. Yes, another buzzy guy. So talk about that pick.
Yeah, well, it makes sense in the late rounds to try and add a little bit of stacks. You know, if you're looking for tiebreakers, I've got Sam Darnold. Torrey Horton has clearly surpassed MVS as the wide receiver 3. Now, I'm not trying to be hot takey an hour and 30 minutes into the show, but would it surprise anyone if Torrey
Are you
Horton
about to talk bad about MVS?
I was about to talk bad about Cooper Kupp, who looked pretty grim last year, was really low in open score, really struggled to get open, particularly in the red zone as well, which, you know, it's a difficult place to get open, but he used to be able to shift really easily. So I like taking Torrey Horton there. And again, chasing ADP on a player who continues to get all the right kind of hype. But when it comes back to me, this is my final pick. And I feel like this either has to be a running back or a tight end. So a running back, the choices for me would have been guys like Ty Johnson or Samaje Perine, guys where at least they've got a locked-in role and pass catching. Something JJ Zacharyson talks about a lot about how people still undervalue that. But the tight end position, Tyler Higbee, Tyler Conklin, Cole Kmet, Aronde Gadsden, Noah Fant, Taysom Hill, Will Dissly, AJ Barner, Michael Mayer, Luke Musgrave. There's some interesting names there. I'm just not sure I can do it when I've got Trey McBride, Sam Laporta, and Isaiah Likely. Maybe this looks bad if Isaiah Likely doesn't make it back in time or isn't effective in week 8 when I need him to play well. But instead, I'm just going to take Ty Johnson. We know that he's got a good role. The James Cook situation still looks pretty miserable and pretty messy. So I'm not worrying about whether Ty Johnson gets on the field because I feel like he will, and I feel like he'll get some valuable touches when he does. Andrew, it's going to come to you in a second for your last pick, but I'll let you concentrate. I'll let you scroll down. I'm going to recap my team quickly. And if you are watching 1 hour and 32 minutes into this show, make sure you let me know how you feel about my team, what you would have done differently. Bijan Robinson, Trey McBride, Dak Prescott, T. Higgins, Sam Laporta, Cam Ward, Calvin Ridley, Sam Darnold, Jordan Mason, Matthew Golden, Josh Downs, Trey Benson, Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman, Rashad White, Woody Marks, DJ Giddens, Jalen Coker, Torrey Horton, and Ty Johnson. So in this Superflex tight end premium format, I went with a 3 QB, 7 running backs, 7 wide receivers, and 3 tight end build. Quite balanced, but obviously the way that I allocated my picks wasn't necessarily very balanced in how it played out. Andrew, you're a couple of picks away. What do you think you need, given you've got 3 quarterbacks, 7 running backs, 6 wide receivers, and 3 tight ends?
Man, I only have 6 wide receivers. I didn't even realize that. I thought that I had more just because I drafted them so early on. So I'm actually torn between 2. I have a wide receiver I have ranked the highest, and I have a running back that's ranked the highest. So I'm actually glad that you told me that I actually have more running backs. I mean, my receivers are definitely the stronger of my two positions, but because I only have to start 2 receivers and 2 running backs, I can really just pick best player available here. So I don't actually have to go in the running back position. So considering that, I'm going to go with a player that I think we're going to remember and talk about this offseason and think, why was this guy not going higher in drafts? He's super explosive. He's got a focal point role in his offense that we're excited about. And I don't know, Tom. I mean, it seems like special teams are taking over the world. So I'm going to go with Kevontae Turpin as my final pick here in round 20. There's been a lot of kickoff returns for touchdowns, a lot of big plays because of the new dynamic kicking rule where now teams are even more incentivized to help take it out. So worst case scenario, if Turpin is just the best kick return / punt return in the NFL and I get points for all the touchdowns he scores, I'll take that with my 20th round pick.
I think it's a really interesting pick because you look at guys like Marvin Mims, who obviously had such a big role on special teams. And I might be wrong. I can't remember stats off the top of my head, but like Kevontae Turpin probably played more snaps, probably had similar targets last year. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, look, the Cowboys offense, I said that like I believe in him this year. I believe in Dak Prescott. So yeah, I think it's very much an interesting pick. So Andrew, you finished Jayden Daniels, Ashton Genty, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Justin Herbert, TJ Hawkinson, Jameson Williams, Travis Hunter, Tucker Kraft, Travis Etienne, Dylan Sampson, Bishal Tootin, Keenan Allen, Tyler Algier, Kyle Monongai, Joshua Palmer, Shadur Sanders, Juwan Johnson, Kendre Miller, and Kevontae Turpin. What would you have done differently if you could have done anything differently? Was there a certain pick you'd like back?
A certain pick that I wanted back. I'm not so sure. I mean, I really like the way that this team kind of came out. I think maybe there's a debate on, could I have gone a different direction with some of my late round running back picks? Stevenson, I was really considering. I went with Bashal Tootin instead. Maybe he would have fallen back to me if I had waited and gone with Stevenson first instead of Bashal Tootin, and maybe not go with Keenan Allen in that range. Just because I think it's pretty clear my RB2 slot is my biggest hole. But if ETN just is fine, just is the starter for the Jacksonville Jaguars, like that's perfect for me as my round 10 pick as an RB2. Again, this is still full PPR, so he's going to get points for catching passes out of the backfield. So it's really just a running back position that I have concerns about. But we talked about that earlier, where when you do like very hard on or very traditional hero zero RB, your team after is not always going to look great on paper, but at the end of the season, you think about, oh wow, all these guys really kind of stumbled into roles, whether it be Monongai or Bashal Tootin or Dylan Sampson. So I like this team. It has a lot of my favorite guys in terms of receivers, and it's always fun doing these types of drafts that go 20 rounds deep with the guys you pick in 18, 19, 20, where it's you just looking through, like you said, looking through the graveyard, just like trying to find some life with some guys. So got a chance to draft some players like Johnson, Kendre Miller, Turpin, where in most leagues we just don't go enough rounds for those guys to be drafted. So definitely had a lot of fun here tonight, Tom.
Yeah, and of course, the Superflex and Titan Premium format on this draft really pushes some different players into draft boards. Like, we're not normally drafting in formats where Ben Sinnott is getting drafted, where Jalen Milroe, Kirk Cousins are all getting drafted. So I love the spin that it puts on it. I think we both built really interesting teams. Would love to know from the chat which team you prefer, or was there another team in this draft who you think kicked our ass completely in silence whilst we were yakking away? And of course, if one of us wins the $100,000, then perhaps we'll be celebrating with a beer either way. But for myself, Andrew, and producer Sal on this mammoth best ball stream, we really appreciate everyone who's hung out with us tonight. We will be back next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, drafting on DraftKings, I believe. Stay tuned to Fantasy Pros channel, though, because we have so much stuff coming your way over the next week to get you set up for an absolute monster 2025 fantasy football season. We'll catch you soon.